All right, what is going on, guys? You already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with a video. Today, we're going to be doing a recap on our Week 1 game, our matchup against the Miami Dolphins. Now, this is not the winners and losers video. That video is going to be coming out very shortly following this video. I'm just waiting on the advanced statistics to be able to give you guys to back up why a guy is a winner, why a guy is a loser. But that video is to come in this one. Ultimately, just takeaways that we got from this very, very frustrating and disappointing loss. Now, without further ado, you guys know how we start each and every single one of these videos, whether it's a live stream, whether it's just a regular video, whether it's winners and losers. So without further ado, let's get hyped for this video and let's roll that intro. Now, in the future, I would definitely like to do like post-game or pre-game and kind of do like a live stream. Unfortunately, with being sick, that's not how this one worked out. But my biggest takeaway from this game was Mac Jones. Holy crap. If Mac Jones was not your biggest takeaway, I don't think we were watching the same game. From a rookie, from a very legit Dolphins defense. Now, will they be as good as last year? We'll just have to see. But the Miami Dolphins had the second best defense last year. They did lose some pieces, but that's still a very legit defense in the NFL. That is a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL. And the rookie Mac Jones, who was just named the starter a week or two ago, came in and performed the best, statistically, the best out of every single rookie quarterback. Now, it was being said before week 1 even started that Mac Jones could be in the discussion for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I firmly believe that from what we saw already. Again, this is a legit Miami defense. You know, Brian Flores is a great coach who knows the style of Bill Belichick and the Patriots coaching staff, especially their offensive scheme. Do they have a lot of film on Mac Jones? No, but they still know Belichick. They still know what to expect. They know how, he likes to run his offense, how he likes to run plays. Basically, Brian Flores should be more familiar, not with what they did last year, but more familiar with what they did with Tom Brady for 20 years. And that's something Brian Flores knows like the back of his hand. And Mac Jones still came in and performed, again, exceptionally well, proving why he was deserved to be picked where he was. People saying you don't pick him at 15. People saying you don't pick him early on. Well, right now, Mac Jones is looking like the best quarterback in the 2021 draft class. Now, Mac Jones statistically was 39 for 29. That is over 70% completion rate. Never done by a rookie quarterback in the first game. I believe he was exactly 74% completion rate. 29 for 39 for 281 yards and 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. What I will say is that these statistics don't even define the game that he had. There were several passes. I believe there was a pass to Jonnu Smith. I know that there was a pass or two to Kendrick Bourne that got called back. Some pretty big plays that got called back because of freaking penalties by this team. I believe this team had a total of 8 penalties, which went for 40-some yards. That went against them for 40-some yards offensively. Well, and defensively, but mostly offensively. 8 penalties in your first game. The New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins were the 2 least penalized teams in 2020. And New England comes out week 1 with 8 penalties. Guys, this is something that I reported when I myself was at training camp watching this team practice, watching these matchups, is that penalties each and every single day were a big issue. And I said, this needs to get figured out before week 1. And unfortunately, it did not get figured out before week 1. And that is a big reason that I'm sitting here saying that we lost by 1 point. And Mac Jones post-game was trying to put this loss back on him. This has nothing to do with Mac Jones. Now, look, where there's sometimes that, Mac Jones could have hit somebody else, sure. But there were not many. There were literally only a couple. There was one time where he could have hit Jonnu Smith down the field. But other than that, I haven't heard really much other opportunities that he missed. And I personally myself did not see any opportunities that Mac Jones missed. It is very clear, it's very evident why Cam Newton is not the starting quarterback right now. If Cam Newton was the starting quarterback, I believe this offense would have struggled a whole lot more. And this offense still did struggle, but it wasn't because of Mac Jones. These guys were getting open, and they were getting open flawlessly, or at least Mac Jones made it seem like they were getting open flawlessly, right? When Tom Brady was here, we said that Tom Brady made the supporting cast look better. This past year, we were talking about how this supporting cast was terrible. And look, don't get me wrong, it was not great. The supporting cast that, Cam Newton and this Patriots offense was in 2020 was not great. But because of the type of quarterback that Cam Newton was, he was a terrible passing quarterback, whether it was accuracy, placing the ball where it needed to be. You can name it. He wasn't good at it. But I think that's part of why, too, that these receivers, whether it was running backs, tight ends, or wide receivers, didn't look great because they also didn't have a quarterback that was styled to this offense that could make them look better. Mac Jones is helping make these guys look better. He knows how to get to the line of scrimmage before the play. He knows how to switch plays up to make this offense run smoothly and successfully. That's something Cam couldn't do, and he admitted that to himself, that Cam Newton didn't really know how to switch up the plays, didn't know how to set the protection. And because of that, a lot of these times, these offensive plays didn't look successful. Mac Jones can come up, can read the defense, knows already how to change the play. You see him canceling plays or calling off plays multiple times for one play to be able to make sure that this offensive scheme, this offensive play that they're about to go up with is successful. And he's proven that time after time. And I think Mac Jones is already showing that he is the type of quarterback that is going to help these other guys be successful. He's going to help make these other guys look even better because he knows how to make the play successful. Overall, I thought he looked spectacular with his ball placement, his decision-making. There wasn't a throw that he made that I went, oh, dear God, you got lucky. There was that one throw to Nelson Aguilar who had a defender right up on his butt, and it scared me a little bit. But we have to remember, this is not Cam Newton, all right? This is Mac Jones throwing the ball. Extremely, extremely accurate quarterback. We were talking about him being potentially the most accurate quarterback in the 2021 class. If that's Cam Newton, yeah, he doesn't know where to place the ball and he's not accurate, so it's more likely to be picked off. But Mac Jones places the ball where only his receivers can catch it every single time. So again, I can't even say that that was necessarily a bad pass either. And again, Mac Jones, realistically, if you take away the penalties, Mac Jones threw for over 300 yards. In his first game in the NFL, he threw for over 300 yards. 0 interceptions. 74% completion rate. Not to mention that the dime he threw, flawless ball placement and accuracy, just floated the ball to James White. Amazing. Mac Jones' biggest takeaway. Speaking of James White, that's another takeaway that I personally myself was watching this game. Haven't really heard anybody else talk about this. So maybe I'm just hyping this up a little bit too much in my head. But what I'm seeing so far from James White makes me a whole lot more confident that he is going to have a bounce back year. Now, I personally thought Cam Newton and James White were going to have a much better connection because of what we saw in Carolina between Christian McCaffrey, who's a very good receiving back, one of the best in the NFL, and Cam Newton. That did not happen at all. I think what we are seeing so far between Mac Jones and James White is very reminiscent of what we saw between Tom Brady and James White. Am I saying that they're there right now? Am I saying that connection's there? I'm not saying that, but we are seeing a much better connection and him being utilized in the way that we have seen James White for the last several years in New England, besides last year with Cam Newton, now with Mac Jones in the fold. And here's the thing. Mac Jones knows when he needs to go to a check down. Now, maybe he goes to the check down more times than he should. But at the end of the day, I'd rather Mac Jones go down with his check down, be safe, and pick up some yardage than for him to throw a ball who he feels, is going to result in a negative play, an interception or incompletion, whatnot. And again, there was a moment where he did check down to James White when he could have hit Jonnu Smith down the field for bigger yardage. But nonetheless, he didn't make an interception, anything like that. It's still a positive play that picked up yardage. Nonetheless, still a good play. I'm excited to see James White and his receiving ability. And I just think that James White could be back to being the original James White that we have seen, the last several years with Tom Brady, with the styled quarterback that Mac Jones is, especially because when he's in duress, when his receivers aren't open, his tight ends aren't open, takes that easy check down to James White. So I think that this could be a much bigger season for James White than a lot of us were expecting. Now, my next thought here is the tight ends. Jonnu Smith looked spectacular. I know I have this somewhere. No. Anyway, the tight ends looked absolutely amazing. I'm going to say more so Jonnu Smith. Either way, I will say this. I'm not happy with what we saw offensively the first half. They started off slow, and you're going to be like, they started off slow. Damien Harris ran for like 30, 35 yards on the very first play. Yes, but passing-wise, didn't really like what we were seeing, and I don't know how much of that was Mac Jones versus how much of that honestly was Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels with their play calling. I think that's more so what it was. These tight ends, we really did not see in the first half. They were basically non-existent. And the funny thing is it's that it's not like they weren't on the field. The Patriots were running 12 personnel the majority of the time, which again consists of 2 tight ends. That's why you did not see a lot of Kendrick Bourne in this game, because this team was running a lot of 12 personnel, which means you're going to have one less receiver on the field and you're going to have an extra tight end. But again, we did not see these tight ends in the first half. Now in the second half, we finally started to see these guys more. We finally started to see Jonnu Smith with a little bit more creativity in those offensive play calls. And we even got to see Hunter Henry a few times, made a really good, nice, notable catch for a guy his size down on the ground, a low ball from Mac Jones, which was really just good ball placement from him. And him being able to get in a little bit. Now, he really didn't get in until late third, early fourth quarter. And I would definitely say Jonnu Smith was the better of the 2 tight ends. But I do think because of the lack of, even talent and depth at the wide receiver position outside of Nelson Aguilar, New England doesn't have too much. Obviously, Jacoby Myers too. But really outside of that, they don't really have that true number one guy, that big difference maker. So these tight ends, especially when New England's going to be running 12 personnel, they need to get more creative. They need to make sure that they get the ball in these guys' hands, especially Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, I think, showed us a couple of times that get him into open space, and he's going to do such amazing things for this team. There was one point where he got out of bounds. Unfortunately, his foot was just slightly stepped out, so it was called back. But he was going off on just a short pass from Mac Jones, and he was able to turn it into bigger yardage. But again, unfortunately, did get called back, and it wasn't as big of a play because he did step out of bounds. But it's things like that. Things like that where it could easily be just a 10-yard dump off to Jonnu Smith. It could be a screen pass to Jonnu Smith. New England just needs to find ways to get creative, to get him blockers, and to get him into space. It's one thing to ask him to play in tight coverage and with defenders all around him. Obviously, he's not going to, turn that into a 25-yard pickup if it's a 10-yard catch in traffic. But if they can find ways to get blockers around him, find ways to just get Jonnu wide open, I think this is going to be, an opportunity where they can get much bigger splash plays. But overall, was very disappointed with what I saw in the first half and the usage of these tight ends, especially because they used both of these tight ends a large majority in this offense, even week 1. So I'd like to see Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick come up with ways to be more creative with how they're going to use these tight ends. And I do believe they will as time goes on. But for things to have been as slow as they were with as much usage and snaps much as those tight ends got, was definitely expecting to see a little bit more. My biggest takeaway outside of Mac Jones, I would say, was penalties. I want to say this. New England did not, or I should say Miami did not win this game. New England lost it. And that's not to take anything away from Miami. Miami deserved to win at the end of the day. They played a great game. Either way, it was going to be close, whether New England won or lost. But New England beat themselves. And that's something that I said during the game, is that if they keep up with these penalties, if they keep up with these turnovers, they're going to beat themselves. If we lose this game at the end of the day, we beat ourselves. We are the reason we lost this game. This game was in our hands ultimately. We decided what was going to happen, with this game. Unfortunately, 8 penalties, like I mentioned, especially at crucial times, and 4 fumbles. For the love of God, what was this Patriots offense? I'm not trying to get vocally upset here, but what in God's name? This is not a Bill Belichick-led offense. And I know that there's a lot of new running pieces to this offense, so it's going to take time. But to have 8 penalties and 4 fumbles in a week 1 Bill Belichick-led team makes absolutely 0 sense. Now, luckily enough for New England, they were able to get 2 of those 4 fumbles back. But they also lost 2. Ironically, both fumbles that they lost were in the running game. One by Ramondre Stevenson, one by Damien Harris. And unfortunately, that Damien Harris fumble was at a very, very, very crucial moment. And he said himself, it was at a bad time. It was a bad play, but he's not going to get, he's not going to dwell on that, which a lot of people are probably going to be like, he's not taking accountability, but he did. And he's doing the smart thing. Having a short-term memory, like if you're always thinking you're going to be in your head with that stuff, you're going to constantly make mistakes. So I'm glad that he's just getting past it. That's not something we really see from Damien Harris. This was something that me personally, I was worried with Ramondre Stevenson. And of course, once Ramondre fumbled, he was in the doghouse. We did not see him for the rest of the game. I'll be very curious to see what they do going forward with that. I thought that it was a mistake having J.J. Taylor as a healthy scratch. I think the repertoire that we've seen between him and Mac Jones has been nice. Or the report that we've seen from him and Mac Jones has been nice as a receiving back, as a change of pace running back, even as a ball security running back. He's always been good. We know that Ramondre Stevenson in college and even the final preseason game, even in the offseason practices, he's had trouble fumbling the ball. And unfortunately, that bit us in the butt. Now, unfortunately, the Damien Harris fumble bit us more in the butt. But if New England could have kept that ball as they were driving the ball down the field, even on that Ramondre Stevenson fumble, you're talking about a different game. Again, this was a 1-point difference. 1 point. If New England goes down, they score a touchdown rather than a field goal. If they kick an extra field goal, you're talking about winning this game. It's 1 point. Any type of points up on the board, even if it's just a safety, New England wins this game. But again, they beat themselves, especially offensively with, false starts and whatnot. Constantly by these offensive linemen. Big issue. And I do believe it's going to get figured out. It's not something I think is going to be an issue for the whole season, but we're talking about week 1 and why the team lost. That's exactly why this team lost. It's kind of going off of what I just said and kind of piggybacking off what I said is the red zone work. And again, it's week 1. Let's not freak out. But even if, like I just mentioned, this team could convert one of those field goals they kicked to a touchdown, you win this game. And there was multiple times that they were in the red zone that they could have put points up on the board touchdown-wise, but unfortunately they didn't get there, and they had to go towards a field goal, which was 3 points rather than a guaranteed 6 and likely 7 points up on the board. New England had drives that ended on the 24-yard line, the 15-yard line, and then twice on the 9-yard line. The fact that we were that close several times and we either didn't put points up on the board because it was a turnover, or we've only put up 3 points is very disappointing. Now, of course, that big moment that I believe we were on the 9-yard line and Damien Harris fumbled, super unfortunate. We didn't get any points at that point. You put points up with that fumble, at least 3, you're winning that game. Again, unfortunately, that's not what happened. Now, on the other 3 drives, they settled for field goals. And that's not the efficiency you want. 3 of those times ending in field goals and the others turning in turnovers. It was very, very reminiscent. And I think we all felt this, and you've heard this from other sources. This game felt very reminiscent of a Cam Newton-led 2020 offense. And that's not Mac Jones' fault, even in the slightest. Not at all. It's everybody else's fault around him and not him. But this offense just in general, looked a lot like 2020 at times, and those times were in the most crucial moments that lost us this game. Whether we're talking about a Buffalo Bills game where Cam Newton fumbles at the last second and we lose, whether you want to talk about not being able to punch it in at the 1 yard line against Seattle, this is what this game reminded me of, and I thought that we were done with those. And to come back week one and everybody, well, not everybody, but essentially everyone on the offense except for like a few guys, including Mac Jones, that was a very, very big letdown. See what else I have here. Nelson Aguilar. Let's take a moment and give claps for Nelson Aguilar. For a guy who was almost a scratch because he was dealing with injury, for a guy that we haven't seen much of in practice because he's been dealing with injuries as of late, came out and his report with Mac Jones was amazing. Mac Jones was under pressure a lot more than I was expecting. This offensive line did not perform as well as I was hoping. Unfortunately, a big part of that was because of Trent Brown. He went out very early in the first round, not the first round, the first quarter of this game. And then you had Justin Herron in the game. He wasn't performing well. He had a couple flags on him. So then they're going to Yasir Duran, who they just picked up in a trade with the Chiefs. They were on their third right tackle just in that game alone, week one. Just a lot of issues all around. This offensive line did not perform great. Isaiah Wynn allowed like 4 or 5 quarterback hits. With how Mac Jones performed, you wouldn't believe the offensive line did as bad as it did. If Cam Newton was the starting quarterback, I think we would have seen it a lot more because Mac Jones was just able to scramble around and extend the plays and still deliver an accurate ball. But a lot of times he was under duress and he was running for his life a few times. Not happy with how this offensive line performed, even in the slightest. But, you know, outside of Mac Jones being a bright spot on this offense, Nelson Aguilar was too, just as much as I would say, Mac Jones was. He was the best receiver in this game. He was the reason that Mac Jones was able to put up a touchdown. He was the deep threat for this team. Now, we didn't see him, as a deep threat as much as we would have liked. It's only week one, so I'm not too worried about that. But the deep plays we did see really were because of Nelson Aguilar. And the reason these chains were moving was because of Nelson Aguilar. He finished with 5 catches for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. That is averaging more than 10 yards per reception. I do hope that these other receivers can step it up. I know that we're running 12 personnel most of the time. So you're not going to see, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne really on the field at the same time, but still getting more productivity from these wide receivers, hopefully at some point, especially from a guy like Kendrick Bourne. But I'm very happy with what we saw from Nelson Aguilar. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be another 1,000-yard receiver for this upcoming season. And I'm sorry, guys. I wrote down this, and for some reason, I totally forgot. So New England did have 8 penalties. And earlier I said it was for 47 yards. It was actually for 84 yards. So that's a big difference. But yeah, it was 8 penalties for 84 yards. I just want to clear that up. Now, I do want to quickly talk about the defense. That's going to be my last takeaway, really. I think I kind of touched on everything else offensively. This was kind of the big reason that we lost was just because of those mistakes that we were making. But defensively, they didn't start off great. And I think part of that was because Miami knew how to take advantage of some of these guys. I think ultimately this Patriots defense lacks speed still. I think they added a lot of very great pieces. Henry Anderson, Devon Godchow, they just added very, very good pieces that were unarguably upgrades, but they didn't really add much speed. And I think that's a very underlooked aspect of the game in 2020 from this Patriots team all around, especially defense, was that they were very slow and they added powerful pieces, but they didn't add much speed. And because of that, Brian Flores' offense was able to take advantage of that at the right times. They didn't stop the run as great as I was hoping. I think the other problem was that Miami just made plays when they needed to. Like in crucial moments when this defense kind of needed to stop the offense, they didn't. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jonathan Jones who said in his post-game press conference that the problem was they weren't playing complementary football, right? Your defense needs to complement your offense needs to complement your defense. They might be total opposite sides of the ball, but at the end of the day, they all come back to playing on the same team. They complement each other. And the problem was when the offense was making plays, the defense wasn't keeping the Miami Dolphins offense off the field. When the Patriots defense was keeping Miami Dolphins offense off the field, the Patriots offense was messing up, whether it's penalties or turning over the ball. Because of that, weren't on the same page, and Miami was able to take advantage of the plays they needed to make when they needed to do it. Now, something I am definitely concerned with going forward is that teams are really going to take away and utilize what Miami did to move the chains against New England successfully, and that's quick passing. New England has a great defensive line. They have great pressure rate, but if opposing quarterbacks can get the ball out in 1 to 1.5 seconds, they're going to be fine. And that's because you don't have Stephon Gilmore here. The secondary is weak. Hate to say it, but it's weak. You know, we'll talk about this in my winners and losers video and when we go live and I discuss it with you guys, but J.C. Jackson kind of had an up and down game. He was not shut down by any means. I think he allowed like a 90 quarterback rating, had some good moments, also didn't have other good moments. What we saw from week 1, he's not a number 1 corner right now. Not bad, but he's definitely no Stephon Gilmore. He's not a number 1 shutdown guy that you can rely on each and every single week. Unfortunate, but true. And because of that, you know, if the opposing quarterback can get the ball out, like I said, between 1 to 1.5 seconds, he's going to be able to get past the Patriots secondary and they're going to be able to move the chains away. And the Patriots defensive line is not going to be able to get to the opposing quarterback in literally 1 to 1.5 seconds. In 2 seconds, sure. And because of that, like I said to you guys a few weeks ago, I think that Belichick knew the issues in the Patriots secondary, knew that they weren't going to get resolved. So he said, okay, let me revamp this defensive line to help compensate for the issues that the secondary is having. Whereas Belichick the last few years has had a outstanding secondary to help complement the issues they had along the defensive line to give the defensive linemen more time to be able to get to the opposing quarterback. So basically kind of switched this entire offseason. But the Miami Dolphins went after former Dolphins tackle, now Patriots defensive tackle, and Devon Godchow. They were just he was just not able to hold his ground all that well. He was kind of getting double teamed at times. They knew how to push him around. Former player, so I'm not too surprised. I'm not too worried, but they were really able to to capitalize on that. Now, on the opening drive, Devin McCourty had a total of 4 tackles. On the opening drive, 4 tackles already. And that is because the defensive line and the linebackers were not doing their job, which is something I wasn't expecting because the defensive line and the linebackers much improved. We're talking about that being the best part of the Patriots defense. Unfortunately, they didn't show up on the first drive defensively, and because of that, you had Devin McCourty having to come up, being your last resort of tackling, coming up and finally making the play. So, like I said, again, this just was not complimentary football. The defense definitely got better as time went on. But again, I don't think a lot of people realize that. At the end of the day, held Miami to 17 points. You wish they could have held them to a little bit less, but 17 is not terrible. They did good at kind of getting to Tua. They were able to sack him a few times. Pressure was on him a very good amount, able to force an interception. I thought Matthew Judon looked spectacular out there. He's like one of the only people providing speed and durability and just versatility at really every position defensively. So I thought he had a spectacular game still. And like I said, they did make plays throughout the game. It was just not at a consistent level. I thought Adrian Phillips also had a spectacular game, especially in stopping the run. He looked beyond amazing in stopping the run, Adrian Phillips, and that's something that we saw all off season. But again, you know, Devontae Parker beating J.C. Jackson multiple times, Jalen Waddle looking spectacular. Again, Miami really beat New England's defense when they needed to because it came down to speed. Miami had the speed. New England didn't have the speed defensively to be able to keep up with the speed Miami had. And they just made plays when they needed to. So these are going to be my takeaways from the game ultimately. Now, before we do end this one, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsors of this video, guys. betonline.ag. You guys know BetOnline. They've supported this channel for a very long time. Would not be here today without them. Highly recommend you guys go ahead and check them out. They are back. They're better than ever, and all eyes are on the Gridiron team as we start yet again another football season. As always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all the pro and college football action this season, with a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests. BetOnline continues to be the #1 source for everything football, not just NFL, but even college. Guys, all you got to do is head to their website or use your mobile device, sign up today, and receive your 100% welcome bonus. 100%. Doesn't get much better than that. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. And don't forget to use that code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, all the way to your favorite Vegas casino games. Do not wait, guys, to take advantage of the amazing limited time offers that BetOnline has for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest way to bet on all of your sports action, and BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Go ahead and check them out, guys. Like always, if you also do want to support the channel, leaving a like and subscribing and commenting, that's the best way, even sharing the video. But if you want to go that extra mile, go ahead and check out the link in the description below to our Patreon. You can get multiple benefits such as exclusive content, access to Discord with Patriots fans and I, where you get 24/7 just crazy unlimited updates. We're talking during the game. We're going to be having monthly to every 2-week live stream. So make sure you guys go ahead. Make sure you guys check that out. A great way to support the channel and even get some benefits back. Only $10 a month. Check it out, guys. But like always, I appreciate you guys for watching and supporting me. Winners and losers will be out soon. But like always, go Pack.